I'm going to give you 3 workouts I used to break 3 hours in a marathon. It was my first official marathon. To be fair, I had ran a 100 miler before I had finished an actual marathon race, so I was comfortable at, like, I knew what a marathon felt like because I had ran a 50 miler and a 50K and a marathon to train for that 100 miler. So to be fair and honest, I had a lot of fitness leading into the marathon race. So it was my first sanctioned race, but I knew what a marathon felt like, and so I kind of mentally had overcome that hurdle. It was now just about the speed and getting fast because breaking 3 hours is like a golden mark for a lot of people. And in fact, my age group, I have to run that in order to qualify for Boston. It might be a little bit faster now, but at the time, that's a whole different story about me qualifying and not going to Boston, but that's okay. So I just had to really work on the speed. And so to simplify training, because I think I simplify things and try and keep it as just easy and simple as possible. I look at running is either two runs during my runs. It's either a easy run or it is a hard run. It is either base work or zone 2-ish training, or it's tempo, whether it's an interval or it's a longer run really fast. So I had to split my training up into this, and so we'll get into it. So let's talk about the long run, because I think this is where I really locked in for what it would take to do a sub 3 hour marathon. And I got on the course pretty much every Saturday. I did the St. George Marathon. I live in St. George, and so it was just easy for me to do that every weekend with friends and drive up and drop each other off and whatnot. So if you can't do that, that's okay. But that definitely did help me get familiar with how hard I had to run up this hill versus that hill versus this downhill. And so, for example, I would do like speed work during most of these long runs. So it would look like something like I have 12 miles. I run the first 5 at a decent pace, like easy, but I'm not like super slow. It's not a recovery run. And then I would start doing some sort of interval. And so we built on it over the course of 3 or 4 months. But the way it would go is I would do something like a 2x1 is what we would call it, meaning I would run 2 miles at race pace, around 650 minute miles, and then I would take a mile recovery and then run another mile at that same speed, or faster or slower depending on where it was, but it was tempo. So that means like 5 mile warm up, and then I would run 2 at race pace, take a mile to recover, and then run another mile at race pace. That was our 2x1. So then that's a total of 9 miles, and then maybe I'd run the last 3 easy in kind of more of a recovery zone. Not like crazy slow, but definitely dialing it back from the tempo. And so we built this up all the way to the point where I ran 10 miles at race pace on like a 20-mile run, where I warmed up for 5 miles, ran 10 miles straight, no recovery in between, and then cooled down with five more miles. And so there's a lot of variation with this, but here's why I think that really works is, one, you warm up properly. I think that's good to get you in the mindset for like, that 5 miles. I'm like, all right, get ready, man. We're turning it on today. And then the speed was cool because you felt what it was like to go fast, but you dial it back for a mile. That's plenty of time to recover, and then you could go hard for another interval, depending on the mileage. And so that was super helpful because I just, one, was on the course, but 2, I knew what race pace felt like after running for a while, right? And then the last couple miles, even though they were like recovery, I was still trying to keep it at a decent pace. Like I wasn't going from 650 minute miles to like 12-minute miles. It was maybe 8-9 minute miles. If I, sometimes I blew up, but then it didn't really matter because it was the recovery part of the run anyways. But I knew what it felt like to, run on tired legs. And so that was the long run. And we just built on it over time. I think our first long run was 10 miles. And I say we because I did this training plan with, a coach and a couple people. And so it just was really good at me figuring out what the race was going to feel like. And it was a lot of speed work. There was a second speed session I did, and this is the second workout I want to talk about. So this would happen on Tuesdays. So my long run was on Saturdays, but on Tuesdays I would maybe do anywhere from a 6 to 12 mile run. Obviously it was less early in the training block as I was building up. And it was just super simple. I was just running at race pace again. So let's say it's 6 miles. I would run 2 miles warm up, 2 miles at race pace, cool down for 2 miles, right? Or as I built on it, and was running like 11 or 12 miles on this Tuesday training day, I would warm up for 2 miles, run like 3 miles at race pace, take one off, take 1 mile recovery, run 2 miles at race pace, and then cool down for the rest of the mileage. So I just spent a lot of time at race pace. I'm not the most familiar with intervals, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them. It's still speed work, it's good for you. I just wanted to get familiar with the endurance in the longer run, and so I very rarely did any like 400 meter, 800 meter intervals. I was more about, let me do a couple miles, take a mile off, and then run a couple more miles or 1 mile at race pace. So very similar to the long run, it was just obviously shorter on Tuesdays. So I got 2 speed sessions in during the week from most weeks, and I felt like that just helped me get comfortable and helped me get fast enough, right? Now the third one I want to talk about was every other day I ran. So at the time, this is a little crazy, but at this time I was doing a running streak where I ran at least 2 miles every single day. So I didn't take any days off. So like after Saturday a long run, I would run again on Sunday, whether it was 2 miles or 6 miles or whatever. And so what I had to do in order to recover and stay healthy and avoid injury was all the other days. So the other 5 days a week that I was running, which isn't typical. Typically you run 5 or maybe 6 days a week when training for a marathon. But every other day I wasn't doing speed work, I was doing easy runs. And we'll talk about that because there's something very important about this that I think a lot of newer runners miss. But if you were doing a more typical training block, you might have had 2 speed sessions and 3 other days that you were running, or 4 other days if you're running 6 days a week. So what these were was me running at my zone 2 heart rate. So if you're not familiar with heart rate running zones or zone 2 training, I would go watch a lot of videos on this. And what you have to do is you have to calculate your heart rate zones. It's different for everyone. Depends on age, how long you've been training. Like the most official way to do this is you go to the lab and get tested. Now, that requires money and some time and scheduling an appointment, so if you don't want to do that, that's fair. It's just probably the most accurate way. I've sent my numbers to David Roach. If you go to his Patreon, he lets you send him a hard workout and he'll roughly calculate your zones. And so that was helpful because I found like a bunch of different formulas on how to calculate heart rate zones, and there's like based off of max heart rate versus lactate threshold, or if you have a running watch, a lot of the times they have fitness tests, and so you could do that fitness test when you're recovered and fresh, and that will roughly calculate your heart rate zones. But the point is 5 different heart rate zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Easy running is zone 1, zone 2. So zone 2 is like aerobic endurance from my understanding. Zone 1 is like your recovery pace, but it's all based off of heart rate. So a lot of people call their 8-minute mile average run an easy run, and they feel comfortable and they're not like pushing themselves super hard, but their heart rate is high. And so I don't classify an easy run in zone 3, zone 4. So you have to spend a lot of time in zone 2 in order to make yourself more efficient and faster in zone 2 running. Like, this is becoming a more popular concept, but it took me years into running to find this out, and I think this is a big part of my success. And so if I'm not doing speed work, I am in zone 2 or zone 1. It's just that simple, because I need to recover from, those tempo workouts, and then to like just try and avoid injury. Like, imagine if every single run I was running 7-minute, 650-minute miles, right? That'd be too much. And the other part of this is when you train zone 2, when you give it enough time, you start to run faster at the same heart rate. So when I started zone 2 running years ago, I was having to do 14, 15-minute miles. I had to like walk, run. And so I'd wear a chest strap, heart rate monitor, and then when my heart rate would cross into zone 3, I would walk until it came down and start running again. I could hardly run up hills. I'd have to walk them. And so those 14, 15-minute zone 2 miles eventually are now where they're at several years later. I can run sometimes, especially if it's downhill, 730s in a zone 2, in that heart rate zone. Or really, if it's like a flat, it's around 8:30, and uphill, sometimes it's 9 to 10-minute miles, right? So it all changes depending on the grade, but I'm in that heart rate zone. So if it's like a flat track, there's no variance, I'm running around 8:30s in zone 2. So you start to get more efficient at that same heart rate, meaning What do you think takes more or requires more energy? Running 10-minute miles at 160 beats per minute or 160 heart rate, or running at same pace at 140 beats per minute? And so as time goes on, you build this base and you can stack fitness on top of it. And it's crazy to see that there's people out there who've been doing this for years or running for decades, and they run like 6-minute miles, 6:30s in zone 2. Like, that's their easy run. It's pretty incredible. And so I just want to get to that point, and it's a big part of why I think I stay healthy as well. Like, I stretch and take care of myself, but one big part of this is I'm not crossing into zone 3, zone 4 heart rate when it's an easy day. Sometimes I run with a group of friends and don't pay attention. That's kind of rare. I typically train before work pretty early in the morning, but it's either an easy zone 2, zone 1 run, or it's tempo. I think that divide is really healthy. And the last thing I'll say on this is typically what people recommend from what I've seen is you run about 80% of the time in easy zones, like zone 2, zone 1, and then you run about 20% in some sort of speed work. So you could do that based off of time, meaning like the amount of hours you run per week, or like volume, right? So maybe you're not running 100 miles a week. I'm definitely not doing that right now. But that would mean roughly 80 miles are in zone 2 and about 20 miles or more tempo pace. But I see a lot of professional athletes, they actually calculate it by time, not necessarily volume, which makes sense to me. So either way, however you do it, I think it's really important that you do the majority of your running in zone 2. And this built fitness and endurance, and I think my biggest week was 80 miles. It was like 75, maybe 80 miles that peak week of my marathon training. So hopefully you got something out of this video. If you like running content, that's what this channel is about. I'm trying to help people learn from my mistakes, and running quite literally saved my life. And so I just hope I can say something that helps you enjoy running more and avoid injury. And so if you like that, consider subscribing. If not, I still hope you got something out of this video, and I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.